Do you struggle to find your voice in a noisy world? Do you feel your voice lacks confidence and energy to accurately communicate your thoughts, ideas, and passions? Do you wish there was an easy way to give your voice what it needs to captivate your audience every time? My name is Clay Collins, and like you, I struggled with these issues for years. But I found a blueprint that can help you change the way you think about your voice and therefore the way your voice comes across to others. Welcome to the My Voice Mentor podcast. Welcome to the first episode, the first ever My Voice Mentor podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so excited to be able to share a lot of my lifelong principles as it relates to your voice with you. But really, I want to start off with just the basic idea of what we're going to be talking about today, which is, do you like your voice? Do you like the sound of your voice? Have you ever heard your voice recorded? Do you like it? Or do you kind of cringe at the idea of hearing your own voice? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we do that, I wanted to offer you something that I've never offered before, but I have a 5-day vocal boot camp where I share some of my best tips and tricks for vocalists to really take their voice to the next level. I want to give that to you free, but in order to do that, you've got to go over to myvoicementor.com/bootcamp. And there, if you just give us your email address, that will sign you up for a 5-day vocal bootcamp. You don't want to miss that. It's absolutely free. And I want you to be able to take advantage of that so your voice can start really getting stronger and more dynamic. Okay, great. So on to today's topic. If I really consider why I got into vocal coaching, or at least why I stuck with it, one of the biggest problems that comes up again and again, it's a bigger problem than any of the technical challenges that we might come up with as vocalists. We think, oh, well, I need to be able to sing higher notes. I need to be able to project. I've got to be able to use my diaphragm. we can come up with a long list of things that we don't think we are doing a very good job at. And we could make a very, very long list of things. My voice can't do this. And I wish I could sing like that person. I wish I could do that vocal run. The list goes on and on. But the truth is that we all have only one problem as it relates to our voice. Just one. And that problem is that we just don't like it. We don't like our voice. And so therefore, if we don't like our voice, it's not properly communicating our thoughts, beliefs, passions, convictions. And if this is true to any degree when we're speaking, it's absolutely going to be true when we're singing. If we're in a certain level of a shell when we talk, we're going to be even more of a shell when we go to sing. And I've seen layers of this. Now, you might be a very outgoing person. You might just naturally do really, really great when you're talking with somebody, especially somebody you care about, somebody that you feel comfortable with. You're like, I have no problem. You might be an outgoing person, but even people like that, the moment you put a microphone in front of their face or a camera in front of their face, they clam up and they're like, Well, there's a reason for this that I want to talk about today. And the real thing that we have to overcome as it relates to liking the sound of our own voice is that in today's modern world, we are confronted with an element of ourselves that in generations past, we never had to worry about. And what I'm talking about is, if you rewind the clock back maybe 200 years, or maybe a little, not even quite that long ago, but right around 150 years ago, we didn't have the ability to record and play back the sound of our voice. So therefore, the way we perceived it coming out of our mouth and the way our ears heard it was the way that we thought it was. And obviously, technology produced this way to actually, in a sense, go back in time and hear your voice in the way that it was actually presented. In other words, it doesn't lie. Recordings are pretty much an accurate representation of your voice. And we are confronted with a sound or a result that is radically different than what we perceived the sound of our voice to be. And I want to talk about that because that is one of the biggest things we have to overcome. Because one of the things that is essential in today's day and age, if you want to improve your voice, you have to be able to do regular voice assessments. You've got to be able to listen to it and have an objective point of view when critiquing it or saying, hey, I need to improve on this, I need to improve on this. If out of the gate you're like, I hate it, and you're not objective, you're not going to be a very good critic of yourself. And the truth is that we are radically more critical of our voice than somebody else, a third party. Just like you would be less critical or more objective to somebody else's voice. So I want to talk about the difference between the way that we perceive our voice versus the way that it actually is. So as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you, but I'm looking at a camera. I'm talking to you though. My eardrums are actually behind my mouth. They're back here and my mouth is in front. For those that are listening, just trust me, I'm pointing to my mouth and it's in front of my ears. And because of that, my ears actually are not hearing the sound coming out of my mouth. Now, maybe to some degree, they're hearing the sound bounce off of the surface that's a few inches away from my face, and that's bouncing back to my ears. But even that is a little bit different because whatever surface my voice is bouncing off is not quite a perfect mirror. It's changing and coloring my voice. But what my ears are perceiving is this condition called bone conduction. And bone conduction is this interesting thing where you're not hearing an audible tone or an audible sound with your ears. You are hearing and experiencing the vibration of the bones in your body. So as I speak and as I talk, my bones are vibrating in sync with my voice, and my ears feel that vibration, and the brain translates that into sound. To demonstrate this, and we've all experienced it, you can give it a try. Just plug your ears and start talking. Just make it, just make sound while you plug your ears, and you'll notice that you perceive the sound of your voice to get a lot louder. But interestingly enough, it actually didn't get louder at all, not at all. That's actually what you're hearing all the time. But when your ears are open, it lets some of the outside sound in. But when you close your ears and you begin to talk, that's how you perceive your voice. That's your inner perception. If you notice, it's just kind of a unique kind of sound. It's very different. Then let's say you take a recording device like your phone or a personal recorder. I don't know if we use those anymore, but you know what I'm talking about. And you record your voice and you play that back. There's this traumatic result where what I just heard in my ears from the recording is radically different than the perceived sound that I thought my voice was making. And that difference, again, it's traumatic. It's almost like you're presented with a stranger. That's not me. That can't possibly be me. I know what I sound like. And then you're like, I hate that. And then you begin to say, if that's what my voice sounds like, I don't like it. Well, really what's happening is that your vocal identity is being challenged. And when you begin to understand that you have an identity perception of your voice. We talk a lot about identity in life and in everyday life. And we tend to think identity is who we are. In fact, a lot of people say identity is who you are. Well, that absolutely isn't true. Your identity is changeable, and your identity is merely your perception of who you are. The identity is the thing that I pull out of my pocket that is a loose reflection of what I might have looked like at one given point of time, but it's not me and it's not who I am. And how you perceive your voice is not who you are. It's just your perceived identity. And guess what? It's changeable. Okay, so that is the nature of the problem. And it's a big problem. And it's the reason why most singers and speakers never advance, never improve in their voice or in their presentation, because they struggle with taking that first step of just listening to their voice outside of what their natural ears perceive when they speak. So that's one of the big problems. So the first thing that we have to do to overcome it is we have to do the hard exercise of singing into a microphone, speaking into a microphone, and listening back to it. I have a course that deals with this called vocal discovery. And in vocal discovery, one of the first things that we do before we adjust anything is we sing into a microphone or we speak into a microphone, and we have to listen back and we have to take a vocal assessment of what we just experienced. And it's hard. I'm telling you right now, it's hard. Everybody struggles when they first hear their voice. But I can tell you that if you can overcome this first hurdle, the hurdles to come get easier and easier and easier. Because the first thing that we have to do in order to improve our voice is to take an honest, not harsh or critical, an honest look at where it is. I call that a vocal assessment, where I take a very objective point of view and say, okay, today, to me, to my ears, after I get over the shock and awe of hearing my voice, it may sound a little crackly today. It might sound a little tinny. It might sound a little nasally or a little bit deep into my throat. I have to take an assessment, right? I have to try to come up with some good things and maybe come up with some things that I wish maybe were a little bit different. But more importantly than the criticism of the voice or the critical, objective, critical elements of assessing the voice, we have to change the narrative. We have to actually speak to that voice and we have to embrace that voice. Embrace that voice as if it was one of your children that is struggling with their confidence. And we have to love that child and we have to speak to that child and we have to nurture that child and we have to speak life into that child. And what I'm basically asking you to do, if you struggle with hearing or liking or embracing the sound of your own voice, is that you have to, with your will, begin to change that narrative and start speaking positive things over your voice. And I'm going to help you with that because one of the things that when I launched into coaching, one of the things that I promised myself I would never do is I would never abandon the one that brought me. And there's that old song that says, dance with the one that brung you. And for me, the one that brought me who I am and has defined me as a person is God, is the God of the Bible. And so that may not be your vantage point, and that's totally fine, but I have to be honest with what brought me. And God has given me both my proper identity and my proper image, which we're going to talk about later. And so for me, I can honestly speak life over my voice because I know that my voice is a gift from God. I didn't create it. I had nothing to do with my voice. It was a gift, a glorious gift given to me by my Creator, by my God. And so how can I ever take such a powerful and amazing gift and speak curses over it? I mean, I can't. So the first thing that I want to encourage you to do is, hey, if you've had a negative view of your voice or a negative picture of your voice, let's turn that narrative around. We need to speak life over your voice. And that's the first thing that you need to do, because any problem or any challenge that you may have, you absolutely can overcome it. You can progress and get better and get more excellent in your technical knowledge and skill, absolutely, just like we can in any area of life. But one thing that we can't overcome except by our will is the idea that you can love your own voice and that you can speak life over it. You have to change that narrative, or else nothing else that is taught or nothing else that you apply to your voice is going to work, because you can do all the work and still not like your voice, and you've gotten nowhere. So really, that's what I wanted to talk to you about in this foundational podcast, because this is the most important issue. If you can overcome this, if you can change that narrative around, and all I can tell you is in my own life, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. When I was younger, I didn't like my voice at all. And it was a strange thing. I knew I was a good singer. This is what was bizarre. I knew I was good at what I did. I knew I was a good singer, and I knew that people said, oh, you're a good singer. But it didn't matter that I was a good singer. I didn't like the sound of my voice. And so what I spent a lot of my time doing was changing it, adopting other people's techniques. And to some degree, there's nothing wrong with that. Modeling after singers that you like, there's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to the point of I'm hiding behind their gift and their skill, that's what I was doing. And so therefore, I put a lot of things on my voice that didn't fit. It was almost like David putting on the armor that didn't fit him. And ultimately, he had to fight Goliath with just the sling and the stones he had in his hand, because that's what fit him. And it was only when I realized that the best result I got with my voice was when I stripped away all of the pretense and all of the fluff, and I just expressed honestly and true from what was inside of me, even if that was very basic and simple, that actually was my most effective and my most received voice. And so that's the other thing I want to tell you today. Your voice, the one without all that stuff you think you need, all the skill, all the technique, your simple voice is your best voice. So a lot of times with singers, we'll strip away all the stuff that they do, all the runs. There's a scene from Sister Act 2 way back in the day, if you remember that movie, where Whoopi Goldberg's character, the nun, was doing vocal warm-ups, and Lauryn Hill, who is an incredible singer, when she was doing the warm-up, it was like, la, 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 and then Lauryn Hill would go, la, 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 la. I'm like, was that necessary? I remember thinking, okay, come on. If you find yourself just doing a bunch of extra stuff with your voice without realizing it or helping, or feeling like you've got to put on some kind of a mask or a persona when you speak or sing, that might be an indication that you don't really like what's there beneath all of that. And so stripping it all away and just really taking an assessment, that's really what vocal discovery is all about. And so we've got to teach ourselves how to like our voice, because only until you do, you won't be able to actually do the work that needs to be done. Which leads me to the next thing that I want to talk about, and that is the difference between identity and image. So identity is what we typically think of as that's who I am, my vocal identity, that's my voice. And the problem with that is that if there's something going on with your voice or something that needs to change in your voice, you won't change it because to you, that's your voice. An example of this is you might get sick. And as a result of getting sick, a lot of times our voice gets into the pit and then we sound like that. But then days later, after we've gotten better, we're still down here. We're still real croaky in our sound. And the reason for that is over the time of you being sick and your voice changing, your identity in your mind changed. Your brain says, well, that's your voice. And then it cycles that voice, and then that becomes the new normal. When the truth is that's just your vocal identity at that stage. And so vocal identity is a changeable thing, but it takes an act of the will. So I want to talk about the other side of that, the difference between vocal identity and vocal image. The image of your voice is unchangeable. You can't change it no matter how you try. You can sing through a mask, you can speak through a mask, but your vocal image is encoded into your DNA, and that is unchangeable. In Genesis, it says that we were created in God's image. Image is permanent, completely locked in through your DNA, and it's unchangeable. There's nothing we can do to change it. But the identity is changeable. In many regards, the identity can either reflect and be in concert and agreement with the image, or it can be different. It doesn't matter what your voice sounds like right now. The image is still there. And through vocal coaching, you absolutely can find the actual image of your voice and really spend time developing and growing that. But you've got to be willing to change. You've got to be willing to say, this might be my identity, but is it my true voice? We got to find the true voice. That's what vocal discovery is all about. And you might have, in today's day and age, you might have old videos of your voice, old recordings of your voice. I encourage you, if you can, go back 5, maybe 10 years in the past. Listen to old recordings of yourself. Do you sound different? Does your voice sound higher? Does it sound more youthful? Does it sound exactly like it does now? Now, if you're in complete vocal health and you're treating everything perfectly, your voice shouldn't change drastically over the course of time. But if it does, if your voice sounded higher or younger or more youthful 5, 10 years ago, that's an indication that your vocal identity over time has changed. It's gone down. But guess what? Just like I said before, your image never changes. You can actually turn back the clock and go back to an earlier form of your voice. It absolutely can be done. And there's not very many things in your life that you can invest in that you can have for the entirety of your life, but your voice is one of them. And so I encourage you to really, really think about this, because being able to hold on to the voice of your youth throughout your entire life is a real gift. And I tell you what, it's going to keep you young. It's going to keep you relevant in every generation. It's going to keep the humor and the joy in your voice. I want you to think about people as they get older. The voice for some tends to age, and you can kind of tell somebody's age by the sound of their voice. But have you ever noticed that there are some people that no matter how old they get, their voice never changes? Well, that has nothing to do with DNA. Has nothing to do with what you were born with, because we all have the same basic hardware. Just like we all have 5 fingers, we all have the same basic hardware in between the larynx. We have ligaments and we have muscles there. We all have the same stuff. The difference is that those who keep their voice youthful as they get older, they adopt healthy vocal habits. Whereas others, either because they don't know or they never really invested in it, they didn't. And as a result, their voice ages over time. So the bottom line and the big thing that I want you to take away, and I really appreciate you spending and investing this time, because this is a really deep topic and this is a really important one for everybody. This doesn't just apply to singers or public speakers. Anybody that has a voice owes it to themselves to invest in it. And so what I really want to leave you with is this idea that you have a vocal identity, but that is not a life sentence. If you don't like your voice, or if there's things that you want to change in your voice, you absolutely can. But there is an image of your voice that is unchangeable. It was prepared for you before you were even born. It was determined before you were born. That is your voice. That's the voice you need to love. That's the voice you need to invest in. And I tell you what, vocal coaching and vocal training is the best way to do it. So I want to share with you briefly about myvoicementor.com. It's a site that provides online voice coaching and community and online courses for you to invest in your voice right now. Maybe some of you are actively doing presentations with your job or doing public speaking engagements, or maybe you're on a platform or a worship team at your church, or you're singing in a band and you really need to invest in your voice. My Voice Mentor is perfect for you. So I want to encourage you to go over to myvoicementor.com, check out the online vocal coaching program, because it's the best way for you to invest in your voice right now. It's affordable. You can do it from the comfort of your own home, and it will absolutely be life-changing for your voice. So for this first episode, I simply want to leave you with this idea that your voice is your best voice. Investing in your voice is a worthwhile, lifelong pursuit that I want to help you with. So I want you to subscribe to this podcast, rate it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and please give us a review. Let us know if there was anything in this episode that was impacting for you, or that maybe caused you to think about something in a different way. Your reviews help us improve. And if you have a question about your voice, feel free to reach out to me at info@myvoicementor.com. I look forward to seeing you in next week's episode. In the meantime, love your voice. You're going to have it your whole life, and it's worth your investment.